Welcome to Linux Saloon, a place to discuss tech, open source, and where Linux is always on tap. Each show will have a talk about Linux projects such as distribution, and actually sometimes it might not even be Linux. We can talk about desktop environments or applications. We also chat about the news or any variety of topics from the community. Anything that is Linux, tech, and open source related is on the table for discussion. I'm Nate, here with my favorite group of nerds. Although I have lots of favorite groups of nerds, so if you know, there's about other groups, and I say they're my favorites too. So don't take any offense to that. You're all my favorites. I don't play favoritism, I guess. Maybe is what I'm trying to say. But anyway, how is everybody tonight?
Excellent.
Doing good.
Great. Love and life.
Good.
How are you?
Doing awesome.
That's fantastic.
Love and life.
Today has been one of those like really busy days. So like my mom just turned 80, my sister turned 40. They want to celebrate their like I guess my sister's half the woman my mom is, I guess, or something like that. They want to celebrate here at Cubicle Labs. So my sister like brought some of her lady friends and like, so could you actually move all of these shelves of tools out of the way so that we can kind of put a rug here and some couches? And I'm like, sure, yeah, I'll do that. Anyway, so I did it. I'm not mad. I'm not annoyed. Okay, maybe a little annoyed, but anyway. So I guess that on the upshot is Cubicle Labs is getting a real good scrub down. It's getting everything cleaned, dusted, like a shop. I guess why does a shop need that? I don't know, but it's probably a good thing. And yeah. So how am I doing? I'm exhausted. I'm actually like really exhausted today. So Eric is going to take over.
They made you do it. They made you do it?
Most of it, yeah. One of the ladies actually helped me move the heavy stuff. But,
okay, that was a different story altogether then, because it sounded like they were undertaking it themselves, and then all of a sudden I realized no, they were just telling you to do it. So
so it's not like I was just the only one working. They were cleaning stuff too. They're moving tables and chairs around and moving deck chairs on the Titanic as it's sinking. Stuff like that. That's what they.
But probably you would have to be the one to say, okay, it's all right to move this, and here's where we'll put it, and all of that. So that makes sense.
Yeah, there was one other person that was actually helping me. One of the other ladies was helping me. But she's actually a doctor. And she came all out of town to help my sister out. So actually, she has like really awful stories, and they make me laugh. Like I will never say the stories that she tells me, like that she experiences in the ER. Like I will never share those, like on Linux Saloon, because I think YouTube would probably strike us or something.
Yeah.
But they're great stories. So if you have any doctor friends in your life, say, hey, do you have any like cool stories? Because they're going to tell you something that's going to make you really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, I have that sense. And I actually hear from some of my practitioners that they'll tell stories, but they don't use names. So actually one of my nurses last week said, oh yeah, I went home and I told my husband all about that thing you told me. I didn't tell him your name. like he would know who I am or something. But
right.
But yeah, I think they enjoy sharing that kind of stuff with their non work related people, because to us it's all shocking or fascinating or whatever, but to them it's just another day at the office.
Right. Yeah, it's like we have a very interesting office.
Yeah.
I'm good with mine the way it is, messing with servers and desktops. That's way less messy. I mean,
just imagine the hijinks that people get up to, and the myriad ways that we find to hurt ourselves and each other,
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is true.
We are creative.
Humans have an amazing ability to do things that shouldn't be done, and good and bad.
Oh my! Well, that's good. It's good. Always good to have a doctor around, especially whenever there's a group of rowdy people. So. Yep,
I totally agree.
So is this like a weekend affair, or is it happening tomorrow? Or
tomorrow? Yep, tomorrow.
Okay.
Tomorrow, 4 p.m. So if any of you are anywhere near Cubicle Labs, you're welcome to come to this party. I guess there's going to be a lot of people there. There won't be any booze, so if you're into that, sorry. But there will be sparkling water. So the flavored water that, it was made in a room that might have had strawberries in it at one time, something like that.
Yes.
Yeah,
they dipped a strawberry in it.
No, not even that. It was kind of like it was just in the same room. It was just cohabitating for a moment.
So they're actually letting you attend. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it's my mom and sister, so I would hope. Well, no, they actually asked me. So they said, "Hey, do you have like working audio in there?" I'm like, "Didn't you see the giant speakers?" I'm like, "Well, yeah. Do they work?"
Do they work?
Says yes.
It's not like I collect a bunch of stuff for no reason. I mean, come on.
Well, there is some of that, but I said, yeah, of course it works. And so, so apparently I have to play music. So I said, yeah, because it's for my mom, who is 80 years old, my sister. I said, so okay, I'll play like Metallica and Nine Inch Nails, stuff like that. That's what you want?
Lords of Acid.
Yes, maybe some what is it? Was it something Clown Posse? Insane Clown Posse.
Insane Clown Posse. Yeah.
Get the Juggalo crowd going. Yes.
Yeah. And then one of the ladies says, "Hey, do these TVs work?" I'm like, "Well, one's a monitor, but yes, they do work." And it's just, could you put like Happy Birthday or something on there? I'm like, "Yeah, I can do slideshows." Oh, you can do slideshows? Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I can.
Time to find those old pictures.
Yeah. So I guess I'll be doing Cubicle Labs. Will, instead of showing blueprints, it'll be showing happy pictures of people. Family, I guess. Hopefully not many of me. Although since I'm in the slideshow, I'll just remove all the pictures of me. All right. So
I never
what?
Sorry, I just had a random shower thought. I never realized it, but I think I'm almost half the age of my grandmother. Believe it or not. And
So
she's having a birthday. So
you're half the woman half the woman half the man of your grandmother. I don't know. We're just gonna let that one go.
something like that.
Half the age. Yeah. Well, if you have not done so yet, be sure to do the straw poll. It's tell us how much you love Haiku OS. I should have probably put that in a haiku, but I didn't. I wasn't thinking that I had that well. So if you have any fun haikus to go along with your experience with Haiku Linux, you know what? Sounds like my Eric. Why don't you go ahead and take over for just a moment?
All right. So
What happened?
What'd you do?
we have a link to the straw poll. So if you haven't taken the straw poll, go ahead and do that.
Yeah, it's loud.
And so this week we'll be talking about Haiku, which I've looked at. Someone just mentioned that it's been in development since 2001, which sounds about right. I've looked at it several times over the years, and it is an interesting view of what could be if
probably because there's smoke outside.
things were, different, that, Windows didn't take off or Mac wasn't a thing or Linux. It's just an alternative, and it's different enough that it sort of makes you think, yeah, I guess it could be like that. So interesting thought exercise, if nothing else. I've never been able to stick with it because I never was able to sort of get all the software I wanted and all that, which kind of stands to reason. But it is interesting nevertheless. So again, if you haven't done the straw poll, go ahead and do that. And in the meantime,
Jinda
had mentioned something, 3D printing.
He's been doing some amazing work in the land of 3D printing.
I wish I could say that.
And by the way, my house is not on fire. The kids are having a campfire outside, and the windows are open. So that's what happened.
It's your story, and you're sticking to it.
Well, if the house is on fire, you'll witness that pretty quickly. So anyway, Jinda, as I interrupted.
That's fine. That's fine. Go ahead. Interrupt all you like. I was playing with a 3D printer. Yeah.
What were you printing?
Well, what I was doing was I was printing like a torture test to see, where temperatures are supposed to be and all this fun stuff, and trying to learn about how to do supports. And, unfortunately, using a 3D printer is this big ball of worms that you have to try to straighten out. There's a lot going on it, but I did run a number of slicer programs, and I can't believe the difference of results you get trying to print the exact same thing twice just by using a different piece of software. I would think it would be different, but I wouldn't think it'd be that drastic. You know what I mean? You're going from a print that goes in the trash versus, hey, this looks fine. You know what I mean? On the CAD file, and then you save it as a particular file that your slicer can open. Okay. So which you all know how a 3D printer works. It's a hot glue gun that goes around and makes the shapes of what you're printing, and it keeps going up and building layers or slices it. So this 3D printing software will take that 3D model and break it down for its sliced in layers and X and Y to make it print. Then it also can add things like supports. Like say you have something that's overhung that you have to put a support over here. It can print supports, which actually work. Believe it or not, I know it sounds ridiculous, but they do work. And that's basically what a slicer does. It shows you the print. It lets you put all the pieces on the bed. You know what I mean? So you want one piece here, one piece here, one piece here, one piece here, and it allows you to make that file. And like I said, you wouldn't think there would be this drastic difference between one software and another, because I just got a new 3D printer and I'm trying all kinds of different pieces of software to see which one works. And personally, the first time I tried it, I would have thrown the thing in the trash. But then when I went with Orca Slicer, it's the most amazing thing I've ever used in my entire life. It prints perfectly, flawlessly right out of the box. And before it was basically garbage. It didn't print anything at all. I don't know if you guys, anybody here plays with 3D printers. I think Sean does, right?
I think he
Oh,
does.
yeah.
Yeah, which slicer are you running, Sean?
I use Orca Slicer most of the time.
Mhm.
I'll fall back to Prusa Slicer
Mm-hmm.
if there's something that just doesn't happen to work correctly in Orca Slicer. It's kind of like always nice to have like a backup program
Yes.
to fall back to. It kind of depends on if you're using the built-in settings for your particular printer can vary a lot from slicer to slicer.
Yes.
So you might want to compare those to see if it really is like an apples to apples comparison, and it's just how the G code is being handled.
Right.
But yeah, Orca Slicer is great. Can't say enough good things about it.
Yeah, I just started using Orca Slicer as well, and I will say that it is a better slicer program. And welcome, Adam. You say, Eric?
I was just going to say it's a fascinating idea, like this concept. I had never really thought of the fact that you have to take a 3D model and then somehow something has to translate that into, okay, how many slices is it? How thick is it? How many swipes is it? Like just sort of all of these particular I've never really played with a 3D printer, so I've just never had to conceptualize that before. And the fact that there would be different ones and that they would be better. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty wild stuff. I've been doing quite a bit of 3D printing again recently because my kids are doing robotics. My oldest is doing robotics, I should say, and so they need parts printed and so forth. So it's been the slicer makes a big deal, and also the one thing I will say about the Orca Slicer is they give you a lot more options as far as like for build plate adhesion and supports and stuff like that, and so that's I think where the Prusa Slicer kind of lacks, and where I think the Ultimaker is the other one I used a lot too. But I think right now the Orca is probably my go-to at this point.
Now that we're talking about that, it does remind me. So my wife had done sign design for quite a while, and she would create a vector file of the design itself. So it had all of the shapes and, nodes and all that stuff. And then someone in the shop would take that and then translate it into the lathe file. Mm-hmm. And then the lathe would go and either cut the metal or the foam core or whatever material they were using with router bits. And so they had a lathe and a router and like all the different pieces. And I guess, it was the same thing where you just had to translate this virtual shape into a physical shape. Yeah.
And that's G code also. So the G code that we use in 3D printers essentially was first on CNC machines before it appeared on 3D printers. And so now there was a time when you actually operators actually put that stuff in manually. They would somehow do it. I have no idea. The people who did that were far, far smarter than me. But
I don't want to do it again. I've done it.
And
don't want to do it anymore.
yeah, and then what is amazing too is some CNC operators, they will review the G code before they even start the CNC to make sure that there's no crashes or anything that looks out of the ordinary. I'm like, how are you actually reviewing that? Like, how do you know? But they know the machine so well. Like they're so like in the weeds.
Is that like
acquainted.
the scene between Neo and Cypher where he's like looking at the screen and Matrix and he's like, I don't even see the code anymore.
Yeah. I think it was like that for sure. Because you can watch it if you want, like some 3D printing, like Octoprint. You can actually watch the G code go by, and you can, and it's, I mean, maybe it's different because it's additive instead of subtractive. So I don't know. Maybe it's more complicated to add than it is to subtract.
It's
That's
really
a general
funny. You
question.
guys keep saying the G code, and all I can think of is a Juvenile rap album from like the late '90s.
You know what? That sounds even better than 3D printing.
It's a pretty
CNC
good
stuff.
album. Not bad.
Is it actually called G code?
The G code.
The G code.
THAG code. Yeah.
The G code. Okay.
Yeah.
That's very 90s. You know, the 90s were a magical time, frankly. When computers were noisy and movies were good. Movies had to rely on plot, not special effects.
Well, Nate, that computer behind you is not noisy. The Mac. It doesn't even have a fan.
You're right. It also doesn't have a hard drive either. It has an SD card. So.
And that is definitely from the 90s.
Yeah,
actually, nope, this is from 1987. So.
Yeah, I put the IDE to SD card adapter in my 486 machine, and I was like, it's silent now. Like, all the noise it made was just the hard drive mode. Like, it's silent now.
Yeah, but do you think there's something lost, though, in the experience?
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. So sometimes I sit there and make the noise for it. So.
Oh, I like that. Kind of like when you have like a plane as a kid, going whatever and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I would love to see that. Like I want to. Well,
just
no,
me,
I don't want to see it. I just want to
there.
imagine it.
I'm just loading up Civ, and I'm just like, yeah, that's me.
Yeah. Well, there's something said about the sound, and also it does make, it does vibrate a little bit too. There's some deeper noises. The as it basically shakes the furniture. I mean, it's very very subtle, but there is that. It does create the additional.
I didn't think we were going to talk about stuff like that here, but
I'm sorry. I'm talking about G code in the 90s. It's just how these things happen. Yeah. Anyway, so Jinda.
Yes.
So Orca is your go-to at this point. Do you what other slicers are you using? Because I'd be interested to know.
Oh, I tried. Oh God, I tried Pursuer, which was actually one of the ones that I would strongly recommend. I tried Cura, or I think it's Ultimaker's Cura. I think it's really called that. Right. I tried Cura. I wasn't very happy with a bunch of things in Cura. It does work, but there's things that it didn't do as well as Orca.
Is it like the nested options and how you like when you go to advanced, then you're just overloaded with all these different options? You can't make heads or tails of anything. Is that have anything to do with it?
The layout of Cura kind of is horrible. I was confused where to go to find the settings and stuff and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I also didn't like supports. In Orca Slicer, you can do tree, and they look like trees. And then there is no tree option in Cura. There's just basically flat. And they do not work as well and take a lot longer to print. Which I was shocked because I never thought that would be a difference. You know what I mean? I would think they would both have that feature. But I tried a couple other ones, which I don't even remember what they were because they were that bad. I just ditched them right away.
Yeah, I think they're all basically built off of the Prusa slicer. Like that's, I think, the core of like Orca, and there's a few others that it's the core, like Prusa's the core of it. So
yes.
Yeah, Sean, he unmuted. He's going to say something. He's got to say something because he knows these things.
Yeah, so back in the day, there was a program called Slicer or Slick3R, and that was forked by Prusa to make Prusa Slicer, and then Prusa Slicer was forked to make Bamboo Studio, and then Bamboo Studio was forked to make Orca Slicer.
Well, there's lineage. Now, do any of
Yeah.
them contribute to each other upstream, or is that not really? I remember.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure how much cross pollination of the code is at this point. There are also some other projects that have been forked from Prusa Slicer. There's one called Super Slicer, which I've also used in the past. And there was one, I forget the name of it, but it was experimenting with something called arc supports. So instead of having supports for an overhang, what it would do, it would draw tiny arcs to fill out the shape, and each segment of that arc overlapped the previous segment just enough so you didn't have to have a physical support underneath it. So you could like really print in midair, which is a wild thing to do.
That is wild.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of development over the last few years, and it's all like comes down to like the same core at the heart of each one of these things, which is Slick3R.
So the when you bring up Slicer or Slick3R, I noticed Slicer with a 3 instead of an E.
Yeah.
One of those things.
Mm-hmm.
That was back in the RepRap Pro days or RepRap days. Were you involved in 3D printing at that time too?
I've been involved in 3D printing for 8 or 9 years.
Oh wow.
So yeah, I mean, back when I started, there was not a whole lot of options with slicing software. So you had Cura, you had Slick3R. There were 1 or 2 others, but yeah.
That's pretty wild. So I guess I started using Orca because of you, Sean. And then I don't know, Jinda, did you also find out from Sean in a previous conversation, or is it this? Did you come upon it organically as well?
Oh, the guy at work said, he went through them all like I did. And
Okay.
he goes, if you go through them all, you're going to find that you want to run Orca.
Yeah.
And he said the only thing that Orca will not do is when he's doing some airplanes, the support is already built into the 3D print, and it has a hard time interpolating them. That was the only issue he's ever had with it. He says, but otherwise, hands down, it's the one you want to run.
Got it. Well, very cool. So what do you happen to have something that you 3D printed lately handy or no?
Yeah, I printed a replica of a Jeep.
Oh, nice.
And it actually worked. Unfortunately, when I tried to print it in a number of the other slicers, it did not turn out. It did turn out in Cura, and it did turn out in Orca, but I think it looked better in Orca. It was a little model kit. You have to snap it together, and it only took me like 4 or 5 hours to snap it together. I'm kidding, but hey.
I get you. After
I had to have it.
That's pretty neat. Is that like a Matchbox size or smaller than that? More of a micro machine?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same size as a Matchbox car. I got a Matchbox car right here, and they're
okay.
Real close.
Oh yeah, I couldn't tell.
Real close.
I needed like a banana for scale or something.
Yeah, I could have scaled it up. I scaled it actually down.
Okay.
I think, just to see if I could do it, just to see how small I could go.
Uh-huh.
Well, why not, right? I'm trying to push this thing to the limits to find where they are.
Right. Yeah, I always seem to struggle with build plate adhesion, and right now my 3D printer, just as of just now, like before the show, an hour before the show, I was 3D printing something, and
Mhm.
the print failed because of a build plate adhesion thing. Kind of went wonky on me. Then went
Right.
to print again. Now I got a direct drive head too. So, but now it's clogged. So
Right.
it's just sometimes 3D printers are annoying, but what can you do?
Well, there's just too many settings. And unfortunately, if you don't understand where the setting is that you need or understand what it says it is, you're going to have a problem. There's just so much to go on. Like right now, you're saying that it's not sticking to the bed. Well, it didn't stick to my bed because I was too stupid to wash it before I started using it out of the box. I didn't think of that. I'm like, wait a minute, maybe I should wash this stupid thing.
So
I washed it with soap and water and cleaned it off with alcohol, and guess what happened? Stuff started sticking to it.
I wonder if it's because I printed PETG right before, and then printing PLA may have caused the problem. I don't know if
that probably could because it has oils in it.
Oh yeah. Well, there we go. I should have washed it. Maybe I should have talked to you before starting this print.
Sorry, but the thing is that you overlook. There's so many settings to do. You overlook the obvious sometimes, and that was one of the obvious things that I overlooked that I just figured out. You have to have the right temperature to stick to the bed, and the bed has to be clean. Well, that kind of makes sense, but that doesn't mean I'm going to do it.
Right now, what do you use the app image for Orca Slicer, or what are you using? 'Cause I've been using the app image.
I use the app. Yes, I use the app image.
What about you, Sean?
They have a package in Nix for Orca Slicer.
Oh, of course, that's right. By the way, I use Nix.
And I believe they were working on a flat pack, but that has been kind of derailed for a couple of reasons. Somebody like from outside of the team was working on it, and then they were like, "Okay, here it is," and it's like, and the developers were like, "It needs to fit within our continuous integration build tool to make sure that it doesn't have any bugs," and that's where it kind of hit a roadblock.
Got it.
That's the story I heard anyway. So maybe one day there will be a flat pack. I have actually built it from source under Ubuntu at one point to get rid of a bug where it was calling for a certain version library that was no longer there, that it moved to the next version of like under Ubuntu 2404. I forgot the name of the package I was relying on, but the app image would just halt and say, "No, we can't go any further. You don't have this package."
Got it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I use the app image. I haven't had any problems with the app image, so who knows?
Maybe it's been fixed by now. I know there's a new version that's in beta for the next version of Orca Slicer, but maybe it's fixing that one. I'm not sure. I'll have to double check.
Got it. Also, I think one of the other standout features of the Orca Slicer that I really like is all the nerdy statistics after you slice it. That brings you on the side. I think that's a lot of fun just to see them. Some I don't understand, but just the opaque, background with like a bunch of stuff on top of it. It's like there's somebody in the design team is just appealing to my nerdy sensibilities, and so I do appreciate that. It's a little thing, it's the same reason I use the Yaquake drop-down menu. It just appeals to my nerdy sensibilities. So very nice. Well, fantastic. Well, hey, thanks for sharing, Jinda, on the Orca Slicer and your successes with that. Make sure you put the links to that in the show notes when I go to publish this, or put it.
So I wanted to ask what build platform you're using on your printer. Are you using like a glass bed or spring steel sheet? What?
Oh yeah, it's a spring steel sheet that came with it.
Okay.
That's what I went to as well. I've been having better luck with it. So yeah. What is that? What you use, Sean? Spring steel?
Yeah. So I have the powder coated PI spring steel sheets.
Okay.
And I'm currently using Magic Goo as for adhesion, which works out pretty well. Glue stick works fine. This works a little bit better, and you don't have as much glue on the physical platform.
Well, if
it goes on real thin.
If you don't mind, share a link where you get that, like in the somewhere. That'd be groovy.
Oh, Amazon. I'll pull out a link for that.
Okay. Fantastic.
Do the wheels of your Jeep turn, Jinda?
What?
Do the wheels of your Jeep turn?
No, they're pretty stiff. They're pretty rigid.
Okay.
You can't roll the sucker around, but it's adorable. I can tell you that.
That's all that matters. It's adorable.
Yeah, it's got the adorable factor going there. And since I'm a Jeep nut, it's even better.
See, there you go. Satisfies your baser instincts of automobile affections. Cool. Well, all right. Should probably move it on to the straw poll. So if you have not done the straw poll yet, got a few moments here to kind of sort of do that about which best describes your experience with haiku. But before we get to that, get a little time here to do that. There were a couple of funny haikus that were put in the, I don't know if you guys saw any of those. So, I guess they're directed toward me, but Guru the Digital says, loud siren blares bright, flashing lights and smoky night, rushing feet take flight. That was kind of cute. And then silent halls, no flame, yet alarm scream just the same. Calm returns in shame. So, gotta have talent for those. So if you have haikus, please put them in the chat, and we'll see them. If I missed one, let me know. I guess go ahead and take away, Eris.
So, as this is an exploration, we do our usual, which best describes your experience with haiku? And the number one answer was, it is good, with 20% of the vote. Followed by, it's amazing, with 15% of the vote. And another 15% of the vote says, not interested in this exploration. 15 also says, didn't have enough time, busy with work, busy with life. 15% also goes to Thanks Penguin. And to close it out, it's okay, 10%, and not interested in doing the explorations in general, 10%. Nobody voted for did not have a good time with it, and nobody voted for other. And as far as replies, I did get the following. It looks very bland, to be honest. UI reminds me of the late 90s. And somebody else said, I don't have the time to install it. I spent the week trying to get my laptop screen to come on. One thing I noticed that I thought was interesting is Haiku is in DistroWatch, but it's not Linux. And CSI Linux is not in DistroWatch. Thinking emoji. And the last person said Haiku is essentially an open source BOS re-implementation. B was an interesting project. Having its own desktop system, the B box later morphed into a standalone operating system, was a runner-up for the next Macintosh OS, but Apple ultimately went with Next/BSD with Steve Jobs. Haiku, being the successor to B, has been in development since 2001, with the first alpha release in 2009, according to Wikipedia. Will it ever gain widespread adoption? At this point, I doubt it, but it is, in my honest opinion, a way to see a bit of a vintage-inspired OS running on modern hardware or in a virtual machine. Personally, I've had a blast using it from time to time in the past week.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think I had a little bit of a conversation with who was it in chat in the Telegram about with Magnus about he likes Haiku, and surprisingly usable is I think how he referred to it. And then and I thought it kind of felt a little like the old Amiga Workbench. So that was kind of a neat little conversation that we had there. So the Telegram, yep, good times. So Eric, I didn't ask you ahead of time, so I don't mind if I put you on the spot so I can do the less talking. But do you want to talk about the brief history that's in the show notes? Not sure if I can put it.
Yeah, let me pull it up. I mean, I have the notes pulled up. I just need to
okay.
switch to.
Yeah.
Right.
Because the less me, the better.
So, yeah. So you think? All right. So it originated from the BOS, so that's BE, and then OS as one word lineage. And here's a brief overview. The development history began in 2001, as I mentioned earlier. The OpenBOS project was started by several former B Incorporated employees, including Michael Phillips and Wayne Graham. 2003, the name changed to Haiku OS, inspired by the Japanese poetry form that emphasizes simplicity and elegance. 2010s, the development slowed down due to various reasons, but a dedicated community kept working on it. 2020s, 2 beta releases and R1 beta 2 through 5 released R1 beta.
I miscounted. There's 3 beta releases.
Oh, okay. and then R1 beta 3 released. And then there's a link to get to it. And if you just go to haiku-os.org, you can find their release notes and downloads and documentation and all of that. Key points: BOS inspired architecture. Haiku OS is designed with BOS's innovative approach in mind, focusing on speed, responsiveness, and multimedia capabilities. POSIX compliant kernel. The operating system uses a POSIX compatible kernel to ensure compatibility with Unix-like systems and ease development of applications. It's a user-friendly interface. Haiku OS features a modern, intuitive user interface and incorporates elements from BOS's iconic desk and media views. And I think that's probably, based on the opinion expressed in that comment, a subjective statement there that it's a modern interface. Haiku OS is community-driven by nature. This open source operating system aims to preserve the spirit of BOS while incorporating modern technologies and innovations. They have some long-term goals, and the long-term goal itself is to create a robust, feature-rich operating system that preserves the spirit of BOS by honoring its heritage while incorporating modern technologies and innovations. Provides an alternative to mainstream OSs, offering a unique blend of performance, usability, and customization options for users seeking alternatives. Haiku OS is still under active development, with ongoing efforts to improve stability, add new features, and expand the user base. There you go.
Excellent. So this is the exploration. So we have some rules. Not that anybody here is going to violate it. Maybe Adam. Just kidding. But the intent is to talk about the different aspects of the operating system and discuss the experience from using it. It's a discussion that should be objective and constructive. So, non-objective things like this is garbage, not really helpful. But rather if you say we should have had a specific feature and so forth. So the point of this is to discuss the highlights, the positives of the project, but not necessarily ignore the lowlights of the project either. So this is a labor of love for some. So let's not poo-poo on it. So some of the recommended requirements: if you run BOS on a 32-bit operating system, requires Intel Pentium 2 or AMD Athlon, 384 megabytes of RAM, which is pretty small by today's standards. At least an 800 by 600 monitor and 3 gigabytes of storage. If you are the recommended for 64-bit is a processor with Intel Core i3 and AMD Phenom 2. I don't even know what that is. Phenom? Is it Phenom? How do you say that? Phenom? Anyway, don't even know what that is, but I guess it's not very powerful. 2 gigabytes of RAM, for a monitor, a 1366 by 768, and 16 gigabytes of storage. So basically,
I believe everybody says Phenom, but it's supposed to be Phenom or something like that.
Venom,
Weird.
like Venom.
I think that's the way it's supposed to be pronounced, but I think everybody calls him Phenom.
Yeah, well, however you want to call it, that's cool. So I don't know, for those that installed it, did anybody find the installation slow and draggy?
No. You mean the literally 3-second installation?
Yeah. Why is it 3 seconds? Like, what? I mean, is that?
How is it possible?
Yeah.
I honestly
Yeah.
have no idea. Like, why is the CD-ROM 1.4 gigs, but it literally takes 3 seconds? I didn't actually. That's a good question. I didn't
I
check
think the final install is like 3 gigs or around 3 gigs, and it's like it does it so quickly. There's no way you can do that thing with another distro that quickly, even if it's a tiny distro.
Yeah.
I think like Ubuntu might be the closest with when they do their Squash FS stuff. How it just, opens up, like it just plops on the hard drive like that. It's probably the closest. But yeah, crazy fast installation. Did anybody have the installation break or have any problems with it, or any quirks? So the only thing I
It's
thought
a-
was, go ahead.
It's a little weird how it tells you to make partitions. There's no like just install it. If there's nothing there, it just tries to figure out by itself. Like here, just like a default, just click away. Like usually distros, it forces you to actually make the partition yourself.
Yeah, I just made one partition and then I didn't think about it, but I don't know if I maybe missed a step there. But anyway, it installed fine and it booted fine, so I guess it did all right. Do you know if it like uses like the master boot record for the boot portion of it? Does anybody know how that works? Or
I'm
It
sorry.
depends on if you are installing it on a UEFI system or not. If you're doing a UEFI system, you need at least 2 partitions to do the handoff.
got it. Well, regardless, I didn't do that. I just did legacy boot for it, and it worked great. In fact, when it rebooted, I thought it did something wrong because I thought maybe I missed something, but it actually was fine. So that was kind of weird. So yeah, no problems in installation, and kind of nutty how just easy the whole process was. So what
So we
about
got a correction from YouTube chat.
okay.
Soy Ronin, I think. It says disk usage is 1.53 GIB.
Okay. Well, I didn't check. I didn't think to check it until just now. Should have, but yeah, it was crazy fast. Anyway, as far as applications, I know that a lot of things are kind of not there. I get it, but was there anything that was like glaringly missing? I mean, okay, obviously like there's no 3D acceleration from my understanding, but is there anything like if you were going to use this for productivity, was there anything you couldn't necessarily do on it? Maybe.
I don't think there's a word processor, which I think would help a lot.
I thought there was LibreOffice.
Actually, there is.
Oh, there is?
It's not installed by default, as far as I know. But if you look in the Haiku Depot, which is their package repository, you will find LibreOffice.
And the Calligra suite from the KDE organization, which that boggles my mind a little bit.
There's actually quite a few KDE application ports in there, which surprised me as well.
And is it Geno, the Haiku IDE? So if you want to do Haiku development, I guess that's there. Got Inkscape. Got Console, the KDE's terminal emulator, which is wild. Krita. Yeah, LibreOffice is there. LMMS for it's a music production software. That's pretty cool. Ocular. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff on there. Scum VM. So if you want to play some Maniac Mansion, it's got you. Tux Paint. See, there's our Tux tie-in. There we go. We got it. Awesome. Anyway, yes, I mean, so I guess no video editing software. At least unless I missed it. So I guess you couldn't do video editing. I think Nate needs to turn his mic up. Okay, I can do that. Is that any better? No? Okay. A little more. All right, I'll try and enunciate a little bit better there, or the dolphin. So yeah, there's a lot of things out of there. I think that you're probably a lot of the applications, depending on what you're doing, may not fit your needs. But I think for standard, or I guess for the time period that Haiku OS was forked or derived from BOS, I think you can pretty much do anything at that time, and then some. So I guess if you were to go to Haiku OS, is there anything that would be glaringly missing for you, Sean?
I don't think there's any CAD or 3D printing software, slicers, etc., available in Haiku at the moment. However, I did see in their repository that they did have Wine, particularly boxed Wine, for running Windows applications. So that may be a workaround. But then it kind of comes down to a point is, if you're running a lot of apps through Wine, do you really have the right operating system, right? So in my mind, that's kind of like, does that trade-off work for you? And that depends on what your priorities are,
What you're willing to tolerate.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. So you could, I suppose, I didn't really check the browser capabilities, but it did have Falcon. I didn't see that. Firefox? Did anybody see Firefox?
I don't think it has Firefox.
Okay.
Firefox, I tried installing Firefox through boxed Wine and got nowhere.
Okay. So I wonder if with the Falcon browser, if you could do something like Onshape, that CAD application, the web-based.
That's possible. I just prefer not to
Do
work in
web-based.
the cloud.
Yeah, no, I understand.
So the LibreOffice in the repos is 24.8.1.1-1, and then the current version is 24.8.2. So that's very recent.
But I did also see GIMP, Inkscape, were both in there. So and GIMP is actually on a pretty recent version. It's like 2.99.
29.18-1.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's like a really recent release of or actually I think it's a beta, but yeah, it's really up to date. And I think it's going to vary depending on who's working on the packages as to how up to date some of them are, just like with anything else.
So 2.99.18 was released in February 21st, and 2.10.38 was released in May 5th. So it's a few months old, I guess.
Yeah, I think obviously it's not a rapid pace of development, but I don't know if it necessarily needs to be in some ways. I think that it's not going for the bleeding edge anything. I think it's more like keeping like a lightweight, I don't know, let's see if I can kind of operating system.
I mean, there's still not 1.0, right? So this is all still a beta. So maybe there's a lot of people waiting for the 1.0, so they'll get more support when that happens.
I kind
Yeah.
of have a
I'm not.
philosophical. Go ahead. Go, Jim.
I'm not even sure what the timeline is to version 1.0 of Haiku. It's it's a very interesting project, and it does keep that spirit of early computing alive, I think. But when or if it ever hits 1.0, I'd love to see it, but who knows how many years that's going to be.
Is that even the point, right? Is it just the point that it's, changing bit by bit into Nate's, point earlier, where does it need to change? I look at it now today and think back to when I first looked at it 10, 15 years ago, and substantially, I'm just looking at the desktop and moving around and stuff, like it just kind of feels the same as it always has. And if you were to show me, I mean, if I went back and look at screenshots, I would think it would probably, like, what has actually changed here? And I'm sure there's different applications and new versions of things, but I'm not even sure it's about the fact that it might ever get somewhere. I think that the user base that's using it, like what I was going to say is it's almost like a philosophical thing. Like it's,
Yeah.
if you can say that it's already, like, Linux is already esoteric enough, right? Like if you've decided that you're not going to use a computer that has a pre-installed operating system, Windows and Mac, you're going to install a different operating system, and you don't go with, like, Linux is probably the most complete, I would say, obviously. You could go to, FreeBSD or another BSD system. You could try, different systems, but I think to run something like Haiku and to run it like as your operating system, I think it goes beyond just your needs of computing. You've made some sort of a choice that is not necessarily based on technology or function, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I like the idea of saying it's a philosophical display, a philosophical exhibition of an idea of and it's a single user interface too. It's not a multi-user interface. Like it doesn't have different logins. So it does harken back to the days of old for sure, which is probably why Apple went with the BSD based Next OS for their Next OS, and probably also reduce technical liability. But yeah, so I think what's interesting about it is essentially they don't have to do much to maybe keep everything. I don't know. I don't say not like relevant. That's not the word I want to go with, but like so it's functional in a modern world, but not living entirely in that modern world of doing, computers, doing your tech. So now what I would wonder is, and I didn't do any research on this at all. I can't say, I didn't even try, I'm not a security researcher, so I wouldn't be the right person to do this. But I kind of wonder if something like how does this stack up security wise to Linux or FreeBSD in comparison? There's probably less vectors to go out. The attack surface is also smaller, but I wonder how it would stack up.
I would say it would definitely have the advantage of security to obscurity, simply because
Oh sure, yeah.
The number of people who are using it is so small. Who would like want to willingly like go out of their way to write some sort of virus or exploit attack for Haiku?
Right.
Yeah, I understand. I've talked to some of the developers of Haiku OS years ago, and it was just interesting. I'm glad to hear that, folks have been able to check it out. And, I heard Eric say that it hasn't changed fundamentally, at least from looks and appearances in the past 10, 15 years. I'd be inclined to agree. It's just kind of there, so that's cool.
if the operating system is POSIX compliant, so that would mean you could also do some malware because of that, right? Because it is POSIX compliant. Anything you could do with the other distros, you can do the to the distro, do the to this distro through that means.
Yeah, maybe. I think that just means POSIX just means it complies to a certain standard of, it's like almost like a terminal language, though. So it means you could use. It doesn't mean necessarily that the same exploits would exist. I don't think, but I could be wrong. Again, I'm not a security researcher. I don't even pretend to be one. So Zoe Ronan says, has anybody tried updating the repositories? I got an error.
I updated the distro with the updater. That worked fine.
Yeah, me too. That all seemed to work, and I was able to install new software as well.
Okay.
So maybe updating it to a different repository, that I don't know.
Yeah, I couldn't say. I don't know. Yeah, so there is a community forum if you would like to like join in, you can actually do that too. So if you have questions, things that we can't answer, because I lack the experience, but if you have interest, you can go forward and learn some more stuff there. But
How do you feel about the title bar?
you mean like the top? It's like I was just
Yeah.
like a small little area.
It's just the letters themselves. It doesn't cover the whole window. Is that better than like how Linux usually does it, or is that worse? How do you feel about that?
Well, you can change that. So you can have a full width bar at the top if you want.
Years ago when I first started using Mandrake Linux, one of the window decoration styles was that kind of what Haiku OS is using, and I didn't like it then. I kind of like it going all the way across. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think I miss having the minimize and maximize button. Oh yeah, I guess you kind of sort of have maximize, but you have like a minimize, and I kind of sort of missed that more than I cared about how wide the bar was.
What about the
It's just
close
a toggle.
button being on the left side?
So that reminded me of my Amiga and how that's where the close button was. And I had forgotten that that's where it was, years ago when like when I came back to using the Amiga, I'd forgotten that that's how it was. I don't know. I mean, I'm fine with it. It's okay. It doesn't hurt me. It doesn't upset me. It's not my favorite, but whatever. I think it's too easy to close it over there, especially now that I expect that to be more of a menu. Or like I'm just used to seeing an icon of the application there now. So I think that's more the issue, I guess.
I mean, I guess it's an interesting take on, if you think about it, sometimes overlapping windows kind of get lost. And so that even if you have a window that's technically like the full screen, you could still sort of see behind it. I mean, I don't know. That's like the, the one like thing I can just think of off the top of my head. So stylistically, it's just sort of like, oh, there's a little tab, like almost like a folder tab, right? Like a manila folder tab to the left of every window. And
It's a way you can create your own tabs. Like you leave a little space here, attach the next window, and then so you can click on the tab. It's kind of
yeah.
That's how I see it.
Yeah, and I seem to remember that you can get different. I don't know that they necessarily consider them themes, but you can get different. It's almost like in KDE where you can change the theme itself, but then you can change like the colors and like the theme itself isn't just one monolithic thing. It's like pieces of I guess colors and icons, and like the theme itself is all these different sort of pieces. I haven't used KDE long enough that I can't remember. Like it was the control set maybe, or the anyway. So I kind of think it's the same way where they do have maybe some other things as well. I really didn't have a chance to dig in very deeply. But yeah, in terms of customizability or customization, yeah, I'm not sure.
So there wasn't much for options, but I didn't look at getting more options. I didn't see a real straightforward way. I'm sure it's really easy to have other skins or whatever color combinations. I'm sure at this point it's got to be. I just couldn't. In the week of messing around with little bits here and there, I didn't find it, and it wasn't. I only dug into the help just as far as for me to find how to install other applications. By the way, I didn't see Telegram for it, so that was a little disappointing. So, but not unsurprising, I guess.
Is there any feelings towards the right click menu? You know how it's like open box? You can get like your apps just right clicking and then like going through the right folder to open your app.
I kind of like that. I mean, I think the right click on the menu is great as long as your desktop is available. Which maybe it should be before you start something new anyway. Maybe that's how we should function to keep our workspaces a little bit more clear. I don't know. So I kind of wonder. I didn't test it on actual hardware because I didn't have the opportunity. But I wonder how it would be on power management versus Linux, since it has fewer services.
I actually did install it on hardware, but it's a desktop.
Okay.
And I did have to go through some hoops based on the hardware that I was installing on. I had to enable like UEFI strict booting in the BIOS and disabling CSM, and then installing Haiku. I had to make another partition, which the partitioner in Haiku didn't handle gracefully. So I had to like jump back into Linux, open up like gparted, make that partition for the UEFI, and get that squared away, and then go back to Haiku and finish up the install. There, I would say hardware support is kind of hit and miss. It picks up the Wi-Fi card fine, but it doesn't have an option to join a hidden network. So, and you can work around that, but it tends to forget that network every time you reboot. So you have to like re-enable that network every time. Also, as far as video out on my video card, I don't get any kind of dual display. I only get a single mirror display on two monitors. So it's hit and miss, and I think that's kind of one of the biggest hurdles for them going forward is to have the modern hardware support up to spec with things that are out there. So
one of the questions I was kind of curious with any of you folks here in examining Haiku OS, is there anything that you've perhaps encountered in dealing with Haiku OS that you feel is something you learned that you can apply to a Linux distro to maybe make it better? Something like that would be a benefit to a Linux distro in general. Is there anything y'all was able to find like that?
Personally,
install speed.
That's awesome. Yeah. I really like the window management as far as being able to do like a tabbed window group. That's really awesome. I can see a lot of benefit for that, and also you can also stack them side by side and have them grouped that way. But I can't think of another Linux distribution that handles window management in that way out of the box.
I would say that the window management was not my favorite. but I've kind of grown to be a little bit picky about my window managers too, like how windows are managed at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So I would not be a good. I mean, I'm not going to, hate on it. I'm not going to like beat on it for not being a window manager I like. Haiku is designed for
Right.
for Haiku to be the way Haiku wants to be, so that's good, for that in and of itself. So I think what I kind of took away from the whole thing was maybe thinking a little bit like, what do I really need in order to be productive? Now, I mean, I live on the computer a lot, and I do require a lot of, I guess, modern tools. You got to have the whole Microsoft Office 365 environment. Maybe you could do it in Haiku. I don't know. I didn't test that. Be kind of interesting to see if Falcon could do those things. Maybe it can in Linux. I haven't used Falcon in a while. It wasn't one of my go-tos for quite a while, but I haven't used it lately. But anyway, it made me kind of think like, what is really necessary to be productive? It did kind of jog that. And also, some certain things made me think like, I didn't feel like it was a very efficient usage of space having the column on the side that was taken up. If it should have been, for me, I'd have preferred a little more narrow to one, a little bit, or on the bottom, where it doesn't.
Like an MX.
Well, MX is it on the other side,
Yeah.
but
We're talking about the length, the width, like that skinny you want it.
yeah, like that, yeah, or like Ubuntu, or like Ubuntu was, or Unity, whatever. So I guess a little more efficient usage of desktop real estate, I think, would have been good as well. However, having the menu just kind of at the top and leaving that open there would make it really easy then to do like the right click and get the menu to pop up so you can check other things. So I don't know, there's kind of a little bit of a push pull on that one. Not sure what it's not like one is really much better than the other. You know what I mean? I don't know. But it was nice just to mess with something that was far different to what I'm used to using. So that's what I liked.
So with those,
Yeah, I like that. I like the fact that you make that point because I had a similar experience working along with this MacBook Pro because I'm using something different than what I was using for a good 14 years before. I was using Linux, and so to radically, have it change how I'm doing things, I feel like it's helped me to grow, helped me to be better in certain ways where I'm more flexible versus being maybe quite as rigid as I might have been before.
Yeah, I think I don't think I could be happy using the interface like long term. I mean, if I had to use it, it'd be fine, but I don't think I'd be, thrilled there. I don't know.
It kind of speaks to like why and how do we end up with two of everything, right? So we have Mac and Windows ostensibly, like you look at the whole market share. We have Apple and iOS, and we have, I mean, cars, let's say we have more choice there, but I mean, it just seems like we kind of settle into something and then we kind of get comfortable with it. And I don't think it's bad that something else comes along and, has a different spin on things, but ultimately, I don't know, what is it that makes us
Complexity.
sort of settle,
It's complexity. Everything
Complexity?
today is much more complex, requires so much more resources than it used to. And so when it comes to spending time, like if you're, say, a developer, if your app is sufficiently complex, how can you possibly target every other, if there's like 8 platforms to target, how are you going to get that out, right? And if you're looking like a big software shop or a big, game studio or something like that, you might have more employees, more resources to do that, but then it also becomes more risk because it's also risk management, right? If you're trying to, let's say you have iOS, Android, and Windows Phone was still a thing, and you have 3 platforms, you have to spend a third of your budget evenly on each of them. Well, if nobody cares on Windows Phone about your app, you lost a third of the money you put in. So then you're only hoping that Android and iOS offset that. But if you reduce the number of things, then you can reduce risk because you can spend more time increasing the quality across 2 rather than 3, and you're more likely to have a success across 2 than 3 or 4 or 5.
That's yeah, I hadn't really thought of that. That's a great.
And cross-platform development has become more prevalent than ever, but cross-platform development has also led to a very homogenized experience. We talk about it all the time about Electron versus native toolkits, or how, oh, it's like, is this a native app? No, it's just a web app, right? And like as if that's a lesser thing. And that's the nature of it, right? Like native apps on Windows are basically an endangered species at this point, and Mac OS still has a fair few of them, but a lot of it is just web-based. A lot of it is that way because that's the nature of the economics and the resources behind them. When things get sufficiently complex and things have to talk to complex backends while providing a good front end, you end up with a very lowest common denominator experience, and unfortunately, that's the nature of it.
So what you're saying is Windows is suffering from Electron apps too?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Like you point out like some Windows folks, and I guarantee you they can name less than 10 like new WPF or WinUI or any like new Windows app, right? Like they're all some form of other toolkit. They're a Flutter app, they're maybe built on React Native. They're built on things that are originally designed for the web. They're not using .NET WPF. They're not using WinUI. They're not using these native toolkits. They clue into the operating system as they do, but they do through other libraries. They do through backend libraries, or they run their own backend entirely, or they just connect up to internet resources. There's so little native stuff these days, and that's it. Do you pour a bunch of your resources into making sure it's like a first-class Windows app, but like, how are you going to do that on Mac? Well, now I have to put a bunch of resources to make it a good Mac app. But then, like, do you have success on either of them? Or like,
I think
yeah,
the ultimate expression of that to me was always Office, because I wasn't a Mac user, but the times that I would use Office on a Mac, it was so different. Like it might as well have been a different product. And I
yeah,
thought, well, these can't be the same teams, right? I mean, if they are, they're got to be confused, right? Maybe the guts, like the deep down guts, were the same, but I mean, not even that. The UI was so dramatically different. But
right.
yeah,
Now imagine if all you have to do is make Office on the web. Now everyone gets it,
yeah.
and you only have to
Right.
build one code base. Now, is
Or if
that
you're
as
going to have
good of a
something
code
that,
base? Probably not.
or
But
if
it
you're going to have
serves a lot of
something
customers.
that is like native, it's not native in the sense that it runs on a desktop, as an
Right.
executable, but it's not the toolkit.
Right, like a
So
React app. Like you open up Discord, like, oh yeah, it's a native app. No, it's Electron, right? Or you open up a React Native app in Windows, or you open up a Flutter app in Linux. Like, yeah, it's just the nature of complexity and resources and risk. A big part of it is risk.
So I think given that, good.
No, Eric, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, I am surprised that there isn't a truly modern browser available. I'm not knocking Falcon. I mean, Falcon is capable and does a lot of things, but I've also not had the best experience with it. So I would think if I was Haiku, knowing that what Adam just said is absolutely true, that so many companies are focusing exclusively on web technologies that even if it's not running in a browser, it's using that technology. I would think that if you wanted to truly be modern and truly be open and available and usable by as many people, you would want to have at least one modern browser be like, run very well on that platform. It's just, I mean, that would be the difference between me being able to use it and not use it doing web development stuff, you know?
It's also a matter of skill set as well. Like native toolkit skill sets are just not as prevalent as web stuff.
Yeah.
So, Adam, you kind of put me back on my heels a little bit. I thought Flutter was just another platform. I didn't realize that was not a native application toolkit. I mean, I guess What do you mean by native? I mean, because Flutter runs
when I say native, I mean exclusive to that platform.
But if you have
like a Linux native thing would be something like
GTK.
GTK or Qt or something like that.
But
That can run
Qt's not native to Linux though.
Can run cross-platform, right? Okay,
So-
GTK is probably the better example then. Yeah.
Okay, because like Qt,
So like GTK would be a very specific Linux technology, right? It can run on Windows, it can run on Mac, but it is very explicitly a Linux thing. But then you look at Windows, you have things like the WPF, the Windows Presentation Foundation, or Windows Forms, or the WinUI toolkits. Those are very specific to Windows, or the Swift stuff and Objective-C and Cocoa or whatever they call it these days over on Mac, right? Like there is a very big difference between a Mac native app and a Mac app, and a Windows native app and a Windows app. Linux is a little different because Linux is it's not a monolithic thing, right? It's a collection of a bunch of different. Well, yeah, but outside of that, it's a pretty. If all you got's that, you're not really doing much. But that's what I'm saying. Like Linux has always been like a kit car hodgepodge of things, right?
right?
But when you look at like overall product platforms, they have their own platform that they've built, and those are native things to that platform.
Just an aside, but do you remember? It's probably like 8 years ago now. I know I'm thinking like 2016 era, maybe 2017, when a lot of Linux podcasts were complaining about Electron apps because they're so unwieldy,
memory hungry and slow, and they don't theme right, and
and now nobody cares.
Well,
People still care, but not everybody cares.
But you're not winning that fight. Yeah.
The apps themselves.
It's like you can either throw the tantrum, or you can just accept that Discord's Electron and enjoy Discord. Yeah,
and that's the truth too, is that the app themselves assert their own dominance in terms of what the UI should be. Telegram comes and Discord as well. They have their own, window management in their own framing that like they really just sort of do their own thing. And I think users have just more or less accepted that. Because I don't think people, like to Adam's point, because there are so few of them now, I'm not even sure people even expect, native toolkits, apps, native desktop apps. Maybe they do more in Linux because you tend to see them more. But yeah, I kind of feel like nobody really cares. I mean, the average Windows user doesn't care about theming. Like their apps all look different, right? And Adam has always been quick to point that out to me. Because it's the absolute truth. Like very few things adhere to any sort of a standard, like especially if you start looking at manufacturer stuff, like any kind of a hardware manufacturer, like those little tools they use and stuff, like not everything is just all over the place, like bizarre window controls. And anyway, so I don't even know that there's necessarily an expectation on an end user's part that, whereas back, when Electron was introduced, it was so jarring because it wasn't like a native app, it was like, well, okay, I can run this, but why is it? But aside, the technical issues aside, from a homogenized standpoint of like, does this fit on the desktop? I don't even look at Discord as being like it's its own thing now, 100%. Like I wouldn't think it just doesn't make a difference if it's a native toolkit or not. It just does what it does.
I recall my late 90s, early 2000s Windows time, and none of the apps matched. Everything looked different. Everything kind of had, some of the apps looked like they were made of cheap plastic, I guess. Like I'm thinking, Winamp, I'm looking at you, kid. Anyway, so I guess, by the way, I like Winamp. I think it's pretty cool. Now, at the time I didn't. But anyway, so I guess
the real answer is everything should be hot dog stand.
Well, that's what I'm hearing. That is, of course, the truth. But I guess what I'm saying is it a Linux phenomenon that things have to match? Is that like a Linux OCD thing?
No, Mac people complain about it too.
Yeah,
okay.
I
would say, yeah.
Okay.
It's because you can theme it, right? Because you're used to theming things and you want consistency. And somebody who does really care about this is like Elementary OS, right? They want everything looking the same, using the same language. Kind of like GNOME too, like their own design language. It's very
Sure. Okay.
expressed.
I mean,
Yeah,
I like
design language and interface guidelines help, but I think actually Zoe put it in the chat. That's very true. Like the app paradigm, like the things we use on our phone. Each app we expect to be a different experience. We expect it to work differently, right? I don't expect Spotify to look like Gmail, to look like anything else, right? They're totally different apps. They're totally different
Sure.
experiences, and so we've gotten used to that as like a computing collective. We've gotten used to the fact that different apps are different experiences. Their interfaces are tailored to their experience, and it doesn't all look the same anymore.
yeah. I mean, I guess I don't care. I like things. I like things kind of Qt based, just as on principle. But I don't. To me, that doesn't matter. I just like things dark themed. So I don't like light themed things. But it's only so I don't have headaches. That's
Everything should have a dark theme option, at least.
Yeah.
Which I will say that the Windows 11 dark theme is not too bad, except for all the other support applications still don't follow that. But whatever.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing about it is like if you don't really like want to use the Electron things or whatever, and somebody's made like a cute version or something, like nothing wrong with using that. Like that's whatever. It just seems silly to me that the people who cut off their nose to spite their face when they just like, I'm just not going to use this, and it's like, well, we're all going to be on Discord, and it's like Discord's Electron, it's terrible, and it's like, well, we're all going to have fun over here on Discord. You go sit in your corner and enjoy your, I don't know, IRC in your terminal or whatever. Like,
Hey,
it's that kind of thing, right?
people
Like,
actually-
it's the idea that like you can be contrarian, you can disagree all you want, but understand there are consequences to that, and like sometimes people are just gonna leave you behind when they're all enjoying one thing and you're standing by your principles and sitting on over in the corner alone.
And I think standing by your principles, though, depending, I won't fault somebody on that. If they really truly don't like Electron, I mean, that's fine. I would say the only thing that I really don't like about applications today on Linux, and I don't know how to fix it, but I miss having the cute border, like the window decoration, I guess you would call it, because I like certain functions that I can call up with that, and I cannot, like Firefox now, I can't do that, and I couldn't find a way to force the native window borders. And also like Zoom, the new Zoom Workplace doesn't have that either. It's very, very irritating to deal with. But I just like, there's certain extra little buttons and dials that probably nobody except me wants. That's on my window borders. That's really probably the only reason. So I know that I'm a cheese that stands alone. I'm an edge case, I'm unique like only me in that regard. But that's really my only gripe on modern.
And given infinite resources and infinite development time and infinite skill sets, I'm sure there's so many engineers out there who would love to make apps like that, right? That are infinitely customizable, themable, that you can use in various ways, use on all the platforms. They would love to do that. It's really just a matter of we're only on this planet for so long. There's only so much to go around. Here it is.
Yeah.
Or more likely, management gets in the way.
Probably because you have timelines, and we gotta go to print.
Because adding these customizable toolbar buttons doesn't bring us money like adding in stickers will.
Well, you only need to watch the progression of, like, let's say Telegram, and I know I've been kind of vocal about some of the things where it's gone from like this very sort of focused chat app, and of course it had emoji and whatever, but like it was just really lean, and now like they're throwing in stories and stickers and like all this stuff is just like glommed on there, and you can pay. There's advertisements in group chats now. I was like, oh no, like, so
there were stickers
channels.
There were stickers early on when I first started using Telegram. There were stickers like in 2016.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true. But I mean, beyond that, it was kind of just focused on either individual.
But
or
not
group,
animated
yeah.
stickers. That's fairly new in the.
Right. So
Yeah.
my perennial chuckle, my everlasting chuckle, is every time I see a Discord update when I log into Discord, right? Because I hang on Discord a lot. And every time I see an update, I'm like, hey, here's the stuff we added to the store. We got these new quests. We got these shiny new things. In your mobile app, you can like take a picture of this and that, and it'll turn into this, whatever it might be. But you know what I never see? We got sounded screen sharing on Linux. It's like a low-hanging fruit developer thing, but you know what? No one subscribes to Nitro for audio in Linux. So yeah, it's that. That's my
Yeah, one of
every time I
those-
see it, I'm like, is it there? Nope.
Wait, so you can't share audio in Discord?
Not with the official client. When you do a screen share, there's no audio.
Oh, okay.
Every platform has it except Linux.
So I just use the whatever the QPW graph, whatever it's called, and I can just pipe it in. Yeah,
Into your mic. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not the same.
Okay, right. I believe you.
Yeah, it's really stupid, and it's actually a solved problem. There are third-party clients that have actually made this work. They're technically against their terms of service, but they do work and they work well. The only problem is the third-party ones have a hard time with hardware accelerated video. But that aside, like, it can work. Discord could do it, but
But they don't.
who's gonna sub to Nitro if that happens?
Oh, so you have to
Yeah.
sub to Nitro to get that to work?
No. What I'm saying is, like, adding screen share audio to Linux is such a low priority because it doesn't lead to more money.
Well, okay. I mean, I
Right.
kind of get it then.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying is, like, you wonder why, like, these things go this way. Why can't we have a native version of this? Why can't we have? Because that's not important to the business. That doesn't bring us money.
You know, honestly, I don't even use the Discord app. I just use the web client in Ferdium, which I've been using that since we had that application exploration, whatever application advertiser sometime last year. I've been using. I just don't like the application itself, so I just use the web client, which I realize has none of the extra whistles and bells that I guess maybe matter to you, Adam, or others.
It doesn't have that updating window that always pops up when you open the app.
That's exactly why I don't use the app anymore, because that updating window makes me want to, do something terrible.
And then they throw that updates in your face about like the announcement they made recently.
Yeah.
What would they do?
You know, when you start Discord and then it sends you like, recently we had this introduced or we had these new features. Like
Yep.
you must read about it right now before you do anything else.
And that list will never include audio on Linux.
Never
In years.
know.
There was a post that was started, I believe, in 2018. That post is still going and has never been done. People
Yeah.
are always on that post like, where's screen sharing audio? Where's the audio? Where's it happening? It's been what, 6 years? It ain't happening, folks.
You never know. What might happen is it might be like a skunkworks project that somebody just decides to do at some point in time. To which
The developer, so a couple of the developers on there have come out and said, like, hey, we'd love to do this. It's just such a low priority and we don't have time.
right, it'll be one of those things that somebody actually has time, they just do it, and then that's how it gets in. That's the only way it's going to happen.
And then they get fired. And then they rip it out because it was some guy's code who can't maintain it because he's gone now.
That sounds about right. Wow, you're a Debbie Downer. Thanks, Adam.
I'm just keeping it real, man.
Adam, it was always fun to have a new developer come on board and crush their dreams whenever they look at some aspect of the code and they'd be like all excited. Oh, you know what I could do? I could add this and do it. And I'd be like, yeah, but we're not going to do any of that. And they'd be like, oh.
Yeah. Yep. Like, we know how much better the world can be, but there's money to be had, sir.
That's right. Get used to it, kid.
Yeah.
Throw those dreams aside.
Oh no, I know.
Makes me think of a Princess Bride line. With the so like
Which one?
with the what's your name? It says what's your name? But it says get used to disappointment. He goes, okay, and they keep sword fighting, whatever. It's like,
Yeah.
what's your name? I must know. Get used to disappointment. Anyway.
Ah,
Such a good movie.
Oh my goodness. I
Yeah.
gotta watch it again now.
Me too. Been too long.
Yep,
Infinitely quotable.
it is.
My favorite scene is easily the one with Billy Crystal.
What's between
Miracle Max.
Mostly Miracle Max, the whole mostly dead thing.
Yeah.
is amazing.
He said to Blave.
right, just like an absolute stretch. Just
Liar,
It-
liar.
It's so
it is
good.
so good.
Have fun
It'll
storming the
take a
castle.
miracle.
Yeah.
yeah,
Think it'll work? Bye-bye.
not a chance. Bye bye.
It'd take a miracle.
Yeah, a miracle. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that great movie. Oh, and you know what the best part about that movie is? In the beginning, I can't remember. What's his name? Fred Savage. He was playing a Commodore 64, and the game was Hardball, the baseball game on the Commodore 64. But they weren't using the Commodore 64 sound effects, which are way better than whatever they chose to use in the movie. Like, it was actually a much better soundtrack. But that was the only thing.
The movie is The Princess Bride, Eris.
It's a great movie.
Anyone if you've never seen it, you have to see it.
There's
And if
also
you didn't like it, don't tell me.
There's also a really fun thing. So during the pandemic, a bunch of actors and folks got together and they would do like little, basically, I guess you could call them TikToks now, like little shorts of like they did the whole movie, but in like these little clips. And so like various famous actors would do like different parts of it. And they actually had like Fred Savage in there. It's like he was doing his part, and it was the whole thing. It's so good. Just look that up on YouTube. It's amazing.
I just saw it a couple months ago. I never had seen it during the pandemic, and yeah, it's really cute. Someone did a compilation where it's all one thing now.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, great movie. I tried watching it with my kids, but they were uninterested. But they did feel that way about Napoleon Dynamite the first time I showed them, so maybe I need to try again when they got a little bit older. But the Columbo was in it. He's gone now, but I forget the actor's name.
Columbo. Yeah.
Columbo. He'll always be Columbo to me.
Oh, jeez. Peter Falk.
Peter Falk, yeah.
Yeah. I would have known that. You could have said anything there. I just would have said, yeah.
Mitch McConnell.
Oh, Zoe Ronan said, Tux
Yikes.
Penguin
Other than that.
tier movie. Yeah.
I've been gone since 2011.
So, all right. I think we sort of got done talking about Haiku OS. I guess maybe I just want to kind of wrap it up with one little thing here. Is anybody going to keep a copy of that around or probably play with it again? Will it be one of those things that you just kind of like toy with, or will it be something that you actually use? For me, it's going to be a toy. Just be honest. I'll just, maybe throw it on an old piece of hardware just because I want to see how well it'll work. So, and if anybody else,
I think I'm going to keep it around for a while.
Yeah.
And just kind of kick the tires a little bit more, see how far I get down the road.
Yeah. What about you, Jinda?
I'm sorry, guys. I'm probably not going to keep it.
That's all right.
It does work. It did give me some good ideas to do on my laptop. To try to keep that thing running, but it just wasn't my cup of tea.
No, I get it. Eris will probably be using it next show. I'm sure he's going to find a way to get Zoom working on it.
Oh, wow.
I think it's interesting how Haiku actually picks up my CPU and my graphics, and I don't think there's another distro that does that automatically. Like it tells me in the about section what my processor and my graphics are. So that's interesting. I did want to mention what Francois said in a YouTube chat. He's a dev for Haiku. He said that they are always looking for people to contribute to the project, and especially accelerated 3D graphics. If anybody would be willing to help the team.
Yeah, and I want to I want to see that keep going. I don't know what I wouldn't have any skills to offer the distribution, that project, sound distribution, that operating system. But yeah, Francois, I like Haiku. I think I have some old hardware. I just want to see how it'll do on it, just for kicks, just because. It's called Haiku, by the way. Yep.
It's called Haiku, but the website's called Haiku OS, so I think that's confusing.
Oh, okay.
If it's not Haiku OS, it's just Haiku, but the website's Haiku OS.
Right.
.org.
Well, I called it a distribution initially, so that I was trying to fix myself from that. That's what I was doing. It's not a distribution.
It's a force of habit. It's many distros, but this is not a distro.
Haiku Linux. Anyway, no, it's not. So I think I was sort of inspired by I don't know if I think I brought him up before, but Action Retro. He's put Haiku on some things, and that was part of my inspiration too. So anyway, yeah, I think I'll keep it around. It's a neat toy for sure. It kind of falls in the same, a similar enjoyment as Antics, as far as kind of some.
That's cool.
Not esoteric is not the right word, but like unique,
eclectic,
kind of purpose-built software, to keep around. So if only
I have a feeling I'm going to be doing the same thing where I check back on it again in 5 years. Just seems to be the
mark that calendar.
What episode will it be in a Linux Saloon? We'll check on it again.
I don't know.
Because domain squatters and such, yeah. Haiku's I can see somebody squatting on that. Well, if you can ever get it for less than $9,999, go ahead and jump on that. All right. So thank you for that. That was fun. And next week, we can hop into that already. Next week, we got a news flight night. So if you have any news topics, anything that's burning a hole in your, pocket protector. I don't even know what to say about that.
News sack.
Your news sack. Burning a hole in your news sack. Paper boy. Please share whatever you got. So I got a bunch of news articles to chat about. And also, if you have any discussion suggestions, distribution suggestions, or operating systems, open source or free or something fun to try. It doesn't have to be Linux. Obviously, Haiku is not Linux. We've done BSD. That's not Linux. But they're all kind
of... Not a distro either.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. So if you have any suggestions for distributions of software, I guess, I don't even know. Feel free. Also, applications. We do application appetizers where we just take a taste of some sort of application out there and see what we think of it, see if we'll use it. Doing so has changed a lot of the software I've used on my machine. So, it's been beneficial to me. Or if you have any poll ideas, I was thinking of a poll idea. Don't know if it's a good one, but I was thinking are there any old distributions of Linux that we miss that's just not available anymore or has kind of died off? And I don't even know. That might be kind of fun.
So I remember when Linux Journal used to actually be printed at Borders, and I saw this something about YGRS whatever. I don't know your. Hold on. I'll find it. My brain is clicking. I'm surprised. Let's see. Yeah. YGGBRASIL.
Yggdrasil?
That. Yeah.
I don't know that one. I'm not sure how we could turn that into. I mean, sure, Eris has magical ways of doing magical things, so he's kind of like a wizard when it comes to polls.
Yggdrasil. I never knew how to pronounce it. You're the first person I've heard say it.
So,
oh God, this guy. Oh, God.
But yeah, so anyway, I think there's like Knoppix, everyone Knoppix or Mandrake, Mandriva. That's kind of my jam. Connectiva.
Knoppix is still around, right?
Is Knoppix still around?
Knoppix is around.
Oh, well,
I haven't heard of it in a long. Yeah,
Hannah Montana Linux. That one's gone, I guess.
it's supposed to Justin Bieber win.
But anyway, and then I see some other people hopped in the chat here. See Dave's Vintage Apple Tech, and also Francois. He did mention that there was a distribution, maybe a fork, I don't know, of Haiku because they didn't like the package management layer. So that's kind of fun.
Oh wow.
Rudy's Retro Intel. He's got. Are there too many distros? And I'm going to say no. Because what if I want to start a distro?
I have mixed feelings on that.
Could you imagine the disaster of a distro I would make?
No.
Oh goodness gracious.
It'd be awful.
I think it'd be probably one of the. I think it'd be fun because it'd be filled with all kinds of jokes and condescending. Like you get a command wrong in the terminal, it's probably just going to start berating you. I think that'd be great. It'd be like
what is that Linux where if you make
like
a mistake,
no
it
man's
like
land just full of landmines, right?
Yeah.
Isn't there a Linux where like if you made a mistake, it would like erase itself? Or
Suicide
something?
Linux.
Yeah, Suicide Linux.
Now we're demonetized, but yeah.
Oh, we can't say that?
Yeah, that's why everybody says unalived.
Oh.
The S word.
Ooh, well, I guess there we go. Hey, look, no viewers. I'm kidding. It's still on there.
So much for freedom of speech, huh?
Well,
Freedom of speech gets trumped on by advertisers, by money.
Nobody advertises on here, so we're fine.
You can't have civil liberties and money at the same time, Eric. Come on.
Freedom of speech does never apply to the commercial space. Never has.
Well, unless it's their speech that's
being
impeded upon.
Yeah. So easy to slip into political there, huh? Anyway,
look, I gotta put my communism somewhere, man.
Yeah. In your bread lines.
That's right. Sausage lines too.
I don't think you get sausage lines in that. I think it's just bread and like stale water.
I'm not talking about food anymore.
Oh.
You know.
Oh.
Speaking of being demonetized.
Well, we're not monetized, so there we go.
Okay, in theory.
Yeah, well, okay, in theory, yeah, I suppose. So I want to get to one article here one news article before we totally shut it down. And just a real quick one, just kind of more of a discussion on this. But so it's a little bit of an older article that was just kind of still hanging out that I want to get to for a while now, but I guess they're not that old, September 5th. But so KDE again is operated at a loss during 2023. So just real quick, this is from Phoronix. So announced KDE EV announced the availability today of their annual report for covering 2023. While they made a lot of accomplishments and worked on a lot of KDE Plasma 6 development, it was yet another year they unfortunately operated in the red funding-wise. The 2023 KDE annual report is now available for those interested. KDE accomplished a lot of great software development work on Plasma 6 last year, as well as various conferences and developer sprints. Unfortunately, though, they again spent more than they took in for revenue during the year. So it looks like they operated at negative $457 million. Looks like. No, that's their expenses. I'm sorry. So their income was $394 million, and about 100 million. I'm sorry. I can't read math today. I'm mathing really hard. $349,000, $547,000 is what they spent. And so most of it was staff and contractors, looks like on the expenses. Academy was a pretty small amount, sprints, other events and such. So mostly staff and contractors. So that's pretty typical. Labor is usually most of your expenses, it seems. And then for income, they made most of their money, it looks like, from supporting members and donations. patrons as well. But anyway, so what I want to get into in the discussion was, do you think that money is going to start going dry for a lot of these open source projects? Because, we're kind of in an economic downturn right now, which, we happened, 2008 was the last time? Kind of been in one for a while, it seems like. But do you think that we're going to see other, like, only the strong survive kind of projects in open source? Or do you think they're going to go to being mostly back to how open source was long ago, when it was just volunteer time, and see things kind of stagnate?
I have feelings on this whole thing, but I'm going to keep them to myself tonight in an effort to preserve civility.
All right, after show it is for you. What do you think, Eric? I saw kind of some wheels.
I mean, if you're asking whether or not people will continue pursuing open source, like, I think at this point companies have, a lot of obviously the infrastructure of networks and cloud computing, like all these things that are based directly on open source software. And so I don't know how you stop at this point. How do you even go back to a fully closed source shop?
So, but what I'm saying is, like, so OpenSSH, yeah, that's gonna be worked on, but Plasma, Qt will be worked on because there's a commercial product attached to that that's making money. But Plasma itself, or the KDE project, outside of, a handful of nerds, I know it's more than that. What is anybody going to care? Like, what corporations aren't going to care?
Because people care, and they really. I had this conversation, I've just ventured into the same territory as I think maybe Adam has, where my thoughts on this are, unfortunately, and this may not be true of present company, I think that there is a large contingent of open source users who will never pay for anything. That's just their stance on life, I guess.
But some can't.
It's either owed.
I think some actually are.
Let's cut that. I agree. Yes, of course, there is a certain amount of people who literally can't afford. Although I would still contend that if they really, really cared, or if they really valued the technology, they would probably still be able to scrape together a few dollars. So I'm gonna discount that for right now, because that's the same thing that gets thrown back to me every single time I start this argument. So
Sorry.
Okay, no, it's okay. That group of people aside, the rest of us who have a roof over our head and enough, in our lives, aren't starving to death. There are so many people who just have aligned themselves with the idea that it is free, as in beer, and will always be, and everything should be, from the operating system they use to the software that's on it to the music that they listen to and the movies they watch. They will download it and pirate it. There are just, people who've grown up and lived their entire lives in this world, where the world is, I get what I want when I want it because I know how to get it. And, if you ask me to pay for something, screw you. I'm not going to pay for anything. So,
you can fix that. So, yeah.
But I still think, sorry, 1 second, Swift, but I still think there are enough people who do care that I don't think you're going to see Plasma die, because enough people use it on their systems that they are comfortable with it. They want to use it. And if it means actually spending a little bit of money giving back, then I think that there would be enough of a patronage that would keep these projects going. I think if a open source's project or failure is simply due to a lack of funding, one, they are all generally pretty terrible at it, right? They need to ask more for money, because it's been proven time and time again, whenever they say, we really need help. We don't need, gold, like doubloons. We just need little bits of money from a small amount of our user base. What is it? It's always like, we need 2% of our users to donate, and then we would have more than enough money to operate, right? Something very small like that. And it usually will come through that those people who care will donate and give. And I'm not trying to be virtuous, but I mean, I do that. I don't have a lot of money, not by any stretch of the imagination, certainly much less than I used to. And I still find a way to give, I don't know, a couple $100 a year to various different causes and projects, and a lot of it being software based and stuff like that. So I just find the idea that things are going to fail based solely on disinterest in the financial aspect. If that is the truth, I think it's their own fault in some ways. But if it is the truth, I think it's kind of I don't know. I just don't see that. Sorry, that was a very convoluted way of offending people and then, and then disagreeing with you. So there you go.
I
Sorry.
don't. So no, absolutely fine, because you made a point earlier about if something's important to somebody, they'll find a way to do it. If that's their priority, they're gonna get what they want. I've done it myself. That's how I know. And so it's a matter of, well, how important is this project to you? So, for instance, I love IRC, and because I worked so hard to learn how to do it, sometimes I'm a little slow picking up stuff. And so now that I've got comfortable with it over the years, I do IRC Cloud. I pay for it. I don't mind paying for it. I pay for my Curiosity Stream. I was about to say addiction. But these are things that I enjoy the programming. I enjoy what they have to offer. And it's only a little bit of money that I can just set, and it comes out my account, and it's not hurting me. And I'm trying to do that for several projects. Now, can I do that for everything that goes on in every program that jumps out? Hey, look at me. I want the funding. I can't do that. But I can pick and choose a few things. And I think if you have enough people who are picking and choosing the software that's really important to them or what they feel like they can handle, then if it's worth to you, it'll get funded. That's not an issue at all.
Yeah, I would say
All of
Katie's
us,
one of the things I do donate to regularly. I don't know the last time they had a big push right before Plasma 6. I think that was this year. And I donated enough so I could get my name somewhere as Cubicle Nate. I don't even know where, but somewhere there's a credit somewhere. I didn't even check to see if they did it. I didn't care. But anyway.
But yeah, I'm cool with it. Low $5, not gonna hurt.
I do agree
Do
with
something.
Eric that these problems are less of a financial one and more of a cultural one.
Oh,
thank you. You
absolutely.
made that much easier. I should have just how'd you
Absolutely.
say that?
Absolutely. Because I remember a time, for instance, we're familiar with MTV and just watching, if you at some point had cable and you're waiting for your song to come on, or if there's a channel called The Box that used to be prevalent, VH1 with a pop-up video. We remember when we got excited when our song would come on. And it's amazing how we take that for granted. I can pull up whatever song I want on this little thing here anytime I want. And if I pull out my iPad, same thing. If I pull out this laptop, I can pull it on any device I own and listen to anything I want or watch whatever I want whenever it was made. But there was a time when you could not do that. You had to wait until it was released. You go to the store, you wait in line for it, and you get it. You don't have to do that no more. It's instant gratification, like Eric was talking about. We've gotten used to that. We don't even think about it no more. Why would I wait for something when it's right there? So that's a key part of the cultural shift that we've gone through in the past 20 some odd years.
Yeah.
I still have the Haiku website open, and I'll give the shout out that they have a fundraising for 2024 of $30,000. They're at 25,418. If anybody wanted to donate, get them over top.
Cool. Well, excellent. So if if you feel that these open source projects are important to you, maybe throw a few bones toward them, something.
That might be an interesting conversation someday. I know it's a little heavy and can be contentious, but the idea of what would it mean, or what would it take to maybe shift the culture a little more towards value based, like we've always said, oh, well, there's, you can contribute and you can code or you can do document, like those things have always been there. But the truth is that most users are just passive, users. I count myself amongst them. I mean, I've done some contributing, but I'm not a developer, and I'm not going to like spend a lot of time doing it. But I do have some extra cash that I can throw around every now and then. And whenever someone makes a concerted effort to get my attention and say, hey, it's really important that we get your $5, then I'm more likely to give it to them. And so, but that's a cultural shift. And I guess also the other thing is, how do you get people to care? Maybe there is just that contingent that will always just not care. And they're going to take no matter what it is, whether it's paid for or open source or whatever, they're just going to take. And that's fine. That's just who they are. And then there's the contingent that can't afford to pay. Fine. Okay, you've just got some percentage there. But there has to be a group of other people. And I hear charitable people talking about giving, to different things. But if open source itself makes people feel bad for wanting to make a living, which I think is the other half of this, where if a developer does start asking for something, all of a sudden, it's like shameful in some way, which is stupid. But anyway, could be a topic worth talking about.
Yeah, I think so.
It's all in how it's done. I mean, if it's now that we've gotten into this realm where it's so easy to get things for free, there's not really much of an incentive for most people to really pay for it. And if you do all of a sudden start asking for money, it would be weird. It could catch somebody off guard because of what they're used to doing. We tend to be creatures of habit. And so it's like, hey, I mean, it could just, people are weird. We get into a habit we don't really want to change, and we usually won't unless we have to or something convinces us to do so. So I think that's an interesting concept. And I do go along with the point that Eric was making before. I'll go along with saying, I don't think there's very many people who would honestly say, that wouldn't be able to afford it. It's a matter of what's important to you. You're going to get what you want to get. You're going to find a way to make it happen. If that's what it takes, you're going to do it. You want a place to live, you're going to figure out a way to scramble some coins together and get you a place if it's possible. Most people, I would dare say to do that. But it's interesting.
Motivation.
Start talking about. Yeah, motivation. There you go. I like that word.
Motivation.
I like that word.
All right. Well, I did know that Ricky and Seeker and Ben are here. We're kind of out of time, but I did want you to at least kind of a continuation of our last conversation about StormOS. Essentially, you're eating your own dog food, and how's it going, Ben? Just real quick. I got like 30 seconds.
I'll let Ricky take it this time, or Red, because I tend to drone on a heap ton, so I'll let one of them give a brief section about it.
Basically, Nate, we've been pretty much eating our own dog food, so to speak, for pretty much a little over a week now. From my experience personally, I've been using StormOS on several different machines currently, and I have not run into a single issue on my end. Not a single one.
Same with me and Red. So
Yeah,
I
same with
think
us.
go ahead, Red.
No, same here. I only have two machines, unfortunately, but both of them are running the StormOS over a week now. Been using it, and I've been building my own apps as I usually do and testing them out. So it's fine.
Yes, and I have an NVIDIA Optimus machine here. Two of them both tested on it, and no problems at all. So I think we can safely say that this is our finalized release, and like we said last week, and I think you guys, if you review it, you won't have any problems with it. So
Well, that's great news.
yes, and whenever you see fit that we come back and do a distro explore at it, I think you guys will be plenty impressed with it. So
Well, great. Well, thanks for that update, the little StormOS update, and
yes,
I'll put it on the schedule for sure.
whenever.
All right. Well, it is time for last call. Keeping the
Yes.
keeping the place open a little longer than maybe we should have, but hey, that's all right. So I'm just gonna shoot down here real quick. I know that I saw Steve's very own. He was in the chat. Didn't join again. I'm only a little heartbroken about that, but he's probably busy doing something. That Steve's very own does over there in Chicago. Who knows?
Organizing his butterscotches.
All right, now I'm gonna go ahead and pop off. But
Okay. Organizing his butterscotches. Yep, no problem. But anyway, so while he's not organizing his butterscotches, he does a stream and actually he does live streams now more often. But Sunday morning, he does an 8:30 a.m. Central stream. So join him.
Subscribe so you know when he streams because not always the same time.
Yeah. So I guess he'll just surprise it on you. So check that out. Steve's very own. Eric, what have you been up to?
Not a ton. This week was kind of taken up by the hurricane, just listening to the news, and there's a special place in hell for weathermen. I know they're doing their best to do their job, but the sensationalism and the hype, as someone who's potentially in the path of a storm, does me no favors. Like I've tried really hard to find people who are like level-headed and just kind of give me the information without making it sound like the end of the world is coming. So anyway, yeah, I played around dodging that all week, trying to figure out if we were leaving or not, and ended up staying, and it was okay, thankfully. But otherwise, yeah, I really haven't done a ton, and hopefully going to record more podcasts and get stuff out soon. But between the COVID, it has been a heck of a 4 or 5 weeks for me, I can tell you. So.
Well, and you look great, and you got a smile on your face. So
I finally feel better. Yes.
Yeah. So this is a while ago. There was a clip, and I'm sure Eris has got it like on the tip of his mouse, but there was a clip like it was a weatherman, like it was like fighting the wind, and it's just someone like just kind of like meandering behind in the background, like totally sensationalizing. Or I think it was like Anderson Cooper. He was talking about how deep the water was, but he was like in a ditch with some like boots on or whatever, like those like waders. I don't know what they're called, like if you're gonna go like noodling or whatever. Yeah. So like I think if you're in the news, you're gonna sensationalize whatever it is because they gotta feed their kids, so or their families.
Well, they gotta have the eyeballs. I get it.
Gotta have the eyeballs, yeah. But anyway,
I get it.
Yeah, it's whatever, It's all entertainment. Doesn't matter if it's on the TV or on the internet. Just assume it's entertainment, and
At least we stop hearing the words threat level orange over and over again.
Oh, do you remember like the whole like the threat con?
Forever,
yeah.
for years after that.
That was a long time. Yeah.
Ugh.
There was even a KDE like widget. It was before the plasmoids. Where you could have like the current threat level. I mean, I was into that. So
was it just orange? Because it may as well have been.
It may as well.
For the entirety of KDE 4, it was orange.
Yeah.
So
the link is in the chat.
For the weatherman like that's fighting the wind, but it wasn't actually really windy.
Yeah, there's President Pluggy in the background.
Oh, there's some good weathermen out there. I'm sure of it.
See, what you don't realize is he's moving like that because he's really got to pee, and like that's why he's like rocking back and forth. He's just like, "All right, guys, yeah, it's a hurricane. I really got to go." Just
all that water, yeah, just made him,
yeah,
feel that way.
Yep. 4 Dr. Peppers and a hurricane will do it to you.
If you are into Linux podcasts, which you might be if you're listening to this or watching this, check out Linux User Space. It's one of my faves. So their season 5 has come out. I listened to the last one. It was good times. I was listening to it while I was driving, because you shouldn't don't watch videos while you're driving. It's a bad idea. I've seen some. I saw a person that looked like they drove into a ditch today. Not very hard, but they did drive into a ditch, like trying to leave a parking lot. They were probably watching YouTube. At least that's the story I'm going to go with. So don't watch YouTube while you're driving. Anyway,
I've been in other countries and people have a TV in the front.
really?
Yep.
Well, I got a screen
Taxi
in my
drivers.
van. Oh well, that kind of makes sense. What else are you going to do when you're sitting on your brain? I got the line from It's a Wonderful Life. I wasn't being disparaging. It was a funny. Mr. Potter said that about Bert or Ernie. I can't remember which one. Also, I saw Dave's Vintage Apple Tech. He's got a stream on Sundays. He does like an 8-hour marathon. If you ever want to check that out, he does. They bunch of tech enthusiasts get together and they work on stuff like this. I bet this was featured on there at one point in time, not by me. And then I have a website called cubiclenight.com. I actually did a couple articles this week. One was my 20 years of Linux blathering. It really should have been like 20 years of full time because I did, like where it was the only thing I installed where Windows was gone. And also keeping multiple kernel versions in OpenSUSE Tumbleweed. So that's fun. So Saloon is part of the Tux Digital Network, so check out more great shows at tuxdigital.com. I want to thank you all for your support, however you do it, being a part of this conversation, both the Zoom meeting and the YouTube stream, as well as for everyone for watching the show after the fact. I want to thank everyone involved in making Linux and open source tools possible, and also the Haiku stuff. Possible for us to not only have this conversation, but also to have fun and enjoy our technology. Linux truly puts personal back in a personal computer. Thank you for stopping by. Be sure to tip your developers, and please remember to Linux responsibly. Until next time, see yous.